In the name I am that I am, son of tomorrow, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend on mighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory, come forth in this hour of the victory of the God's flame. I demand the full power of beloved mighty Trinity with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send to me, Lord mighty, Gautama and son of Kumara. Come forth now in the victory of the God's flame. Send the light of 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty Ephraim, mighty Ephraim, mighty Ephraim. Your presence of only sort of flame around this fortune now. I call upon the great single sun magnet. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved Estrella, beloved Estrella, beloved Estrella. I call upon the electronic solar rings of the great central sun, the seraphim of God. I call for the electronic fire rings. I call for the rings of the great central sun. I call for the great central sun magnet and the full power of the ocean and the stars.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Free Association Radio. This is Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm your host. This day and every Wednesday, Robert Phoenix, and I'm broadcasting to you live from now sunny South Central Texas, aka Austin. This morning it was really cold this morning. I mean, look, I know there are people in the Northeast who are saying, "Yeah, you want cold, buddy? Come up here and shovel 8 feet of snow." But it was cold here, about 30 degrees when we woke up with a very strong crosswind. So it felt like it was in the 20s. And but it's warming up, and we're getting into the February groove in terms of weather here for this part of the world, which is generally speaking the high 60s, and then moving into the 70s as we progress deeper into March and then April. Interesting times we're living in, folks. Who can deny it? It's just one hit after the other. On Monday, the Pope announced to the world that he was resigning. This is the first Pope that has resigned in over 500 years. I mean, this is a position where obviously people, they die as Pope. Either they're killed or they expire due to natural causes. And this Pope has chosen to step down, which in many people's eyes leads to the prophecy of Malachi, the Irish father who was also an exorcist. And according to Malachi, who was a fairly regular guest on the Art Bell program, he believes that the Pope resigns, and then there was one more Pope, the last Pope, and then we are in the time of the Antichrist. So according to the prophecy of Father Malachi, this is playing out in a way that is fairly prophetic and perhaps even biblical. We've had some very interesting phenomena with the Pope stepping down. Everybody is now seeing that bolt of lightning hitting Basilica, right? I mean, that is really amazing. I mean, it is hitting directly the top of the dome of the Basilica in the Vatican. And if you are somebody that is looking for signs, that is a fairly interesting and perhaps an even ominous one. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to get into some free readings a little bit later in the show, maybe in the next half hour or so. But what I want to do is I want to look at the Pope and some of the dates and some of the aspects that are around him resigning. And then also, we had an event yesterday on the 12th, which was very strange and unusual. And I'm talking about the Christopher Dorner episode in Big Bear Mountain. Big Bear obviously relates to Ursa, constellation Ursa. And there's a whole series of kind of symbols that go along with the bear. One of the symbols that goes along with the bear is the whole notion of a bearish year versus a bullish year. And we've just entered into the year of the snake, which according to most economists that follow the year of the Chinese astrological new year, the snake is almost always a bearish year. So now we have Christopher Dorner or whoever or whatever happened there in Big Bear. It's very hard to discern and assimilate some of these events now. We didn't see him, with the exception of perhaps there was some video of him trying to buy some scuba gear or something, and then there's a whole series of like older photos with him either in his police uniform or him in his army uniform. Other than that, what do we really know about Christopher Dorner? There was a burned out car along the road, and then there was a firefight. The firefight got cut off. The feed got cut off. We heard some scanner chatter, which was burn the house down, and now the house got burned down, and there's no way that this man can defend himself in a court of law. Now, if you were Chris Dorner, let's place our minds just for a moment into the mind of a fugitive. You've made your point, okay? You've made your point. If you indeed went out and killed those people, and the killings were retribution for being screwed over in the midst of a corrupt system, if that were you, and you really wanted to make a point, wouldn't you at some point say, hey, I'm coming in, I want a trial? If your intent was to enlighten people besides some manifesto that you had left behind, wouldn't you want your day in court? Wouldn't you want to be able to turn the page on the LAPD and flip the script on them? Isn't that, I mean, look, I'm not a psychopathic, lone wingnut, serial killing, zombie, flesh-eating, radical. So maybe my mindset is just a little bit different. Or radical domestic terrorist, let's put that in there. But if I was that guy and I wanted to make sure that I put the screws to the LAPD, I'd want my day in court. I wouldn't want to go out like that, would you? And so we have nothing. We have charred remains, and we have some chatter from a news guy named John Carter, which is an interesting name on some level. JC, right? Julius Caesar, John Carter, Jesus Christ. John Carter from Mars landing on Earth long enough to give the play-by-play from Big Bear and a crossfire. I mean, so this happened yesterday, and then I guess we can look at a little bit about Chris Dorner's birthday. He's a Gemini, by the way. He was supposedly born on 6/11. 11's an interesting number. The Pope resigned on 2/11. Do you see there's a pattern here? There's an 11 pattern, and the pattern is twins, 1-1, 1-1. And what we're dealing with, especially with Dorner, is this overriding sense of duality, powered by Gemini as a prime mover and shaker in the divide and conquer polarization matrix that we're living in right now. Left versus right, red versus blue, white versus black, split the atom, split the nucleus of the consciousness of the nation, and then it's easy at that point to begin to move people around. Because when you have one voice, one people, one mind, one intention, that is not the easiest thing to do. All we have to do is look at Iceland. Iceland went bankrupt. Guess what? They were screwed. They were gamed. It was a Ponzi scheme that the people of Iceland were coerced by their leader and his wife to invest in. And then guess what? It went belly up. It went belly up. It's the oldest trick in the book. Invest in this, and guess what? It goes bankrupt, and the people get to keep all the investment money, and there's no liability. That's just right out of the movie The Producers with Mel Brooks. So why did Iceland turn their situation around? How did they, a country that has absolutely no natural resources other than bjork, steam, and fish, turn their fortunes around? Well, I'll tell you how they did it. First of all, they were of one mind, one body, one voice, one intention. They said, no, we will not agree to the script that Greece followed, that Italy followed, that all these other countries, even Scotland, Ireland had to follow, which was, we're going to accept IMF money as a bailout. And as a result, the amount of debt now that will burden us will be far more than the original debt incurred by the Ponzi scheme that they had unwittingly invested in. So what did they do? They set up their own payment plan. They said, here, we're paying this back. And here's how we're going to do it. And guess what? They did it. They did it. They pooled their resources. They tightened their own belts. They didn't have forced austerity. They paid it off. They're debt-free. And that's what happens. That's what happens when people are not divided and conquered. They can make decisions together. One voice, one heart, one mind. So today what we're going to be doing here is we're going to just be looking at I'm looking specifically at the day that the Pope resigned, because there's some interesting aspects going on at that time. And I didn't even do any fixed stars. I didn't have time to do it, because this morning I got up and I said to myself, what are we going to talk about today in the show? So let's talk about the Pope. So the Pope, let's just go back in time. The Pope was born and raised in Bavaria, Germany. He was born on the 16th of April, 1927, Bavaria, Germany. If you know anything about quote-unquote secret societies or lodges or anything like that, you know that the Illuminati theoretically was founded on May 1st, 1776 by Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria, Ingolstadt. Okay, that's where it was formed. So this is where the Pope is from. The Pope is from Bavaria. And if you go to his Wikipedia page, you'll find out that he, of course, served in Hitler Youth. That is not necessarily unusual for that time. You either did it or you were on the outs. So I don't necessarily hold that against the Pope. And I'm not pro-Nazi or anything along those lines. I'm just saying that that's the era that he grew up in. It was unavoidable. When he was born, he's on the 16th of April. The sun was in Aries, so he's in Aries. Aries is the god of war. It's Roman. Actually, the Roman version would be Mars. This is the Greek version. He has moon in Libra. What's interesting about the moon in Libra is that on the day that he will resign, which is the 28th of March, the moon will be in Libra. So he's going to have a moon-moon conjunction in the sign of Libra. He has Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Taurus, anaretic degree, 29th degree, Mars, Gemini, here we go, Gemini again, 29th degree, and Saturn in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Pisces. So we have a mix of Pisces and some Gemini and some Sagittarius. He also has, interestingly enough, Uranus in Aries at 0 degrees. And I've mentioned this before on the show. When we look at Uranus in Aries, this is the period of time from 1926 to 1935 when we had the greatest number of inventions that changed 20th century. It was in that 10-year window, roughly. And we have things like the computer, atomic energy, the jet engine, television, polymers and plastics, radar, sonar. It all gets developed during that time. It's also, if you go into sort of the esoteric and occult/magical aspects of the Third Reich, it also is that time when the Germans are deeply plunging into these traditions, these spiritual, mystical, occult traditions from all around the world, specifically the Tibetan tradition, because what they're trying to do at that time is they're trying to accrue some form of occult information which would allow them to contact either extraterrestrials or superhuman entities that they could then get information from, i.e. technology, so that they could ramp up and win the war, or the war that they were about to wage. It's a very important time in human history, the Uranus and Aries piece. He also has Pluto in Cancer at 13 degrees. This year, Pluto goes into Capricorn at 12 degrees and will oppose his natal Pluto. I don't see this Pope living past 2014. Because in 2014, there will be an exact opposition between Pluto and Pluto in his chart. Generally, a time when people are the most vulnerable to passing from the body. This year, he's going to have Uranus squaring his Pluto at 11 degrees and Pluto in Capricorn squaring his Pluto. So he's going to have a major T-square going on in his chart. And that happens, the first time that happens is in the month of May. It's at the end of May. There's a very good chance with that T-square that his health will fail. And I'm just looking at the aspects here. So what's really fascinating, though, about what happened and where this is going on, well, so let's go back into the 11th. Let me just go here into the 11th, and we're going to look at a few days here in the 11th. The first thing we have, or what we notice on the 11th, is that the sun is in Aquarius. Very important to understand. The sun is in Aquarius, and it's at 22 degrees. 22. The number 22 is the number of the master builder in numerology. It's an important number in Freemasonry, but in numerology, it is the number of the master builder. He is resigning on the 11th. The 11th represents inspiration and revelation in numerology, but it also represents duality, as in 9/11. We look at the birth of Christopher Dorner. He's born on 6/11. So we see a recurring theme here: 11, 11, twins, Gemini, duality. 22. 22, 11 times 2, 22. Okay? The moon is in Pisces, which is the Piscean age. So we have the opposition between the Piscean age and the Aquarian age. This is what's happening on the 11th of February. They are polarizing. The Piscean age is the age in which is represented by the Pope. The Aquarian age is the age, theoretically, after the Pope. It is the age of man. It is the age of the perfected man, the Aquarian age. And the age of Pisces is the age of the Son of God, the age of Aquarius, Son of Man. Distinct difference in opposition. Mercury was in Pisces at 8 degrees. And here's where it gets interesting. Venus was in the sign of Aquarius. At what degree? 11 degrees. 11 degrees. So now we have the planet of relationship and the sign of relationship, Venus, Venus Libra, Venus Aquarius, Venus in the sign or the planet of relationship in the sign of the new world. And when you add 11 and 22 together, what do you get? You get 33. 33. 33 is the number of the most perfected the most perfected Mason. It is the number. It is the master Mason. 22 is the master builder. 33 is the master Mason. So with Venus and the Sun coming together, 11 and 22, we have 33. How old was Christopher Dorner when he died? 33. So we have a theme. We have a theme being established here. It's no mistake that the Pope announced this on the 11th, on 3/11. And what is 3 times 11? 3 times 11 is 33. See how this is getting played out? Chiron is in Pisces at that time, 8 degrees. Chiron in Pisces represents in a lot of ways the passing of the Piscean age. We are going through, in many ways, the shadow of the Piscean age. It was interesting, the other day I was on Facebook, and there was just a number of Christophers sort of floating around the memosphere, for lack of a better term. And the number of the Christophers, there were 3 of them, a trinity of Christophers. There was Christopher Dorner, obviously. The other Christopher is Christopher Culliver, or Chris Culliver, or Chris Culver, Chris Columba, Christopher Columba. It's actually Chris Culliver, who plays for the San Francisco 49ers, who was crucified in the week leading up to the Super Bowl for his anti-homosexual or anti-gay stance or beliefs. Crucified in the media and now doing penance. Brought before a tribunal of the politically correct and very concerned over his psychological health and well-being. And then yesterday, here in the lovely state of Texas, there was another Christopher, Chris Kyle, who was shot and killed apparently by a random crazy guy that he was trying to help who had PTSD. It's a very strange story. Chris Kyle was a SEAL, Navy SEAL. I think he was a part of SEAL Team 6. Not entirely clear about that. I think he was part of SEAL Team 6. I think his character is actually portrayed in that movie Zero Dark 30. And he was here in Texas working with another vet who was wigging out. And they were at a shooting range. That's a really weird thing. I mean, why would you take a guy under your wing who has PTSD and take him to a shooting range? I don't know. But anyway, apparently Chris Kyle was killed by this other soldier who was breaking down. And he was buried yesterday here in Austin. So we had Christopher Dorner going through his, whatever that was, or whoever was there, the ordeal in Big Bear. And then we have Chris Kyle. So we have 3 Chris's, 3 Christophers, 3 imitation Christs, the Trinity. Things happen in 3s and 7s and 9s. And so we have the passing, in some ways, of the age of Pisces, Christopher or Christ over. So the age of Christ is over, theoretically. And we have the launching of the age of Aquarius, with the stepping down of the Pope, the age of Pisces going behind us, Aquarius, the 11th at 22 degrees, with Venus in Aquarius, 11, 33 degrees. If you go back to the Super Bowl, which we talked about on Monday with Sister Myra, the Super Bowl occurred in New Orleans, which is an Aquarius city. It's an Aquarius city. So here we have this massive ritual taking place in New Orleans, aka the Super Bowl. And if you go back and look at the Super Bowl halftime show, it was literally a pageantry of light. Unlike the elaborately staged epic that Madonna brought out in Super Bowl 46 in Indianapolis at Lucas, aka Lucis, which is light field in Indianapolis. I mean, that was straight out of Hollywood. And there was a lot of light going on there, but it was very, I mean, what you saw with the Madonna experience was very clear. If you haven't seen it, look at it. There's thousands of videos out there on it. I have a post. Go to my website, look at Madonna. You'll see how I broke that down. But the Beyonce ritual is very, very different. And as we go back, you know, you have to deal with these things. I mean, we're getting better at staying with them in real time and kind of breaking them down. But you have to go back and look at it in retrospect and say, well, what really happened there? Because the speed at which Beyonce did her thing was phenomenal. I mean, it was just bang, 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 bang. So we talked a little bit about this on Monday's show. One of the things that I talked about with Sister Myra is that everything was all about light. And if you slow things down and break down the images of the Super Bowl ritual, you'll find some very interesting things going on with the light. Trust me. So what they did is, instead of making this really overt, they kind of made this a lot. Well, they made it a lot more covert for a number of reasons. Beyonce is everywhere right now. She's going to have I think an HBO special on her life. I was talking with Darren Williams this morning. She's all over they've got a phone over there. It's kind of like Virgin Mobile. It's called O2. She's become like a spokesperson for O2. She's everywhere right now. So one of the things that they can't do is, in some ways, they can't lump her into the same kind of overtly esoteric camp that Madonna staked out last year. There's a huge investment in Beyonce on a commercial level. And what's really interesting is that Russell Simmons came out and he said yesterday that categorically and unequivocally, Beyonce is not a part of the Illuminati. In fact, the Illuminati don't even exist. And Beyonce Beyonce had her child. A surrogate did not have her child, which is what people have talked about, that perhaps Beyonce actually had a miscarriage and that the child was delivered by somebody else. Why did he come out and say that? Why did he feel the need to come out and say that? Or why couldn't Beyonce come out and say that? Or why couldn't Jay-Z, her husband, come out and say that? Why was it Russell Simmons? It's interesting. Russell basically breaks down into red light. Red light. Russ, red, E-L, light. L is also Saturn, by the way. So this is what's happening with the Pope. We're seeing this specifically on the 11th of February. The symbolic passing of the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. Now, what's interesting is I looked up some dates, and the 28th, which is when he supposedly resigns. By the way, I see you people on hold. I'm going to get to you. 208-714. You will be rewarded for your patience, trust me. But I always have to talk a little bit at the beginning of the show. When we look at February 28th, as a day, which is kind of interesting. So let's just go March 28th. So let's go March 28th. When we go ahead in time, March 28th, I like to look at religious holidays of certain days. Sometimes we can get insights into the energy of certain days by looking at the holidays, the religious holidays. By the way, the 28th of March is Zbigniew Brzezinski's birthday. That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure it has anything to do with the resignation of the Pope, but it's interesting to know. So let's go back into the annals of history. And one of the holidays and observances that they have on this day is a day called, these are feast days, Christian feast days. This is a day called Pope Sixtus III, and it's connected also. Sixtus is also connected to Priscus. Priscus is interesting, and I'm going to tell you why Priscus is interesting. A lot of times with saints, so this is Saint Priscus, obviously an obscure saint. But a lot of times with saints, there's confusion, there's some cloudiness around who they are and what their life was about. For instance, even the most well-known, one of the most well-known saints, Saint Nicholas, Saint Nick, the life of St. Nicholas is under suspicion and doubt. Like, so theoretically, Santa Claus is in the iteration of St. Nicholas, and St. Nicholas is supposed to be like a martyr that gave. And he was supposed to be a Greek saint, or Greek martyr who became a saint. But there's a lot of, I mean, he's a minor character, and the historical veracity of him is really to be questioned. And yet we are actually promoting him as the face of Christmas, as Father of Christmas. A lot of people know that really Saint Nick is really the devil. That's who Nick is. Like Saint Nick versus Saint Nicholas. Anyway, Saint Expedite, who is the patron saint of New Orleans, who I talked about on my blog, again, a very minor saint. And there's, it's like cloudy. There's cloudiness around this saint. Like, well, maybe he was a Roman soldier, and he decided not to fight. He decided not to kill a Christian or two. Let's make him a saint. Again, a minor saint, and yet he's the saint of New Orleans. So there's a lot of muddied waters around the history of saints. Well, Saint Priscus is in the muddy water. So this is a very brief description, but I think there's something interesting here that might point towards the next pope. Again, this is the day that the pope steps down, the 28th of March. Priscus, according to Wikipedia, is one of several Catholic saints and martyrs. In the 1921 Benedictine Book of Saints, there are 7 figures named Priscus. There are different feast days involved. So 28th of March, 26th of May, and then September 1st, and then October 1st. Okay, so there's 4 feast days of Priscus, which is interesting for a saint that really never had a lot of perhaps validity. There's 7 figures mentioned. Okay, there are different feast days involved. In some confusion, he is said to be the first bishop of Capua, which is an Italian city, a martyr of the 3rd century, and an African bishop. So if you dig around, you'll find that there is a version of Priscus who comes from North Africa. But then it says, but the sources have been cast into doubt, and even the century is unclear in some accounts. Well, if there is a narrative here of an African bishop, a bishop coming from Africa, North Africa, and being sanctified. What's interesting is that one of the people that's being talked about to replace Benedict is a bishop from Ghana who now, I believe, resides in New York City. So perhaps by resigning or stepping down on the 28th of March, we'll be getting an insight into who the next pope might actually be. So then we would have three pretty significant leaders from the UN. I believe Kofi Annan has stepped down. I think it's Ban Ki-moon now who's running the UN. But Kofi Annan had run the UN. You have Obama here in the United States, and then you have potentially the next pope. So that's an interesting kind of aside as well, isn't it? Sure is. All right, so here we go. There's some food for thought. The stepping down or the resignation of the Pope, and we haven't even gotten into why. We just know that he is. The why could be anything from the scandal revolving around Vatican money and the Pope's relation to Vatican money to pedophilia and protecting ministers and fathers, priests within the church, harboring them. Darren Williams, I talked to this morning, has some interesting ideas around this because it was announced on Chinese New Year that the Pope was stepping down. So he's making a connection between Chinese New Year and the Chinese and the Pope. He's going to flesh that out and maybe bring that onto the show. We'll talk about that. So why don't we do this? Why don't we leave the world of hyper-contextual, matrix-based conspiracy deconstruction, and let's talk to somebody real. Let's talk to a real person. Let's find out who they are and what they want to talk about. Hello there.
Hi. Hi, Robert.
Who's this?
This is the gardener in Idaho.
What's going on there?
Well, it's interesting. I loved your prefacing talk about the Pope and all the degrees of his astrology, as they coincided a lot with mine. I've considered what I've been going through the last 7 years to be a pretty accurate micro of the macro.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the Pope doing what hasn't been done for, 600 years or whatever, it was a big announcement of change,
yeah.
A realization of the change that I think has already happened.
Yeah.
So that Mercury was at 8 Pisces, that's my sun.
Mm-hmm.
The Pope and I had a lot of similar numbers. And I'm ready for my 7 years of, living, seeing the underworld in this country and how it operates. I'm really hoping, to come to a conclusion of this whole situation of my micro,
mm-hmm.
All in my favor soon.
Well, so it sounds to me like you really theoretically should be the next Pope.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you think about that? I'll nominate you.
Oh, thank you. No, you gotta be real low down and dirty, I think, to play with that bunch, your whole life.
Doesn't
they
Oprah,
paid a price too big for me.
Doesn't Oprah seem like the real Pope though? I mean, think
Oprah?
about it. Oprah. I think there's a nickname for her. It's Popra.
I saw that the other day.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah, I mean, she is really the new Pope. She's the new Pope, right? You go before Popra and you confess your sins, and she
yes.
she either delivers an absolution or not, So and Oprah is an Aquarius, by the way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's been keeping. It seems like her on the lowdown or something. Lately, you don't hear about her too much, but
well, she just had Lance Armstrong on her show.
Oh, that's right. Well,
it was
I haven't
huge.
had a TV since like 7 or something.
Well, let me fill you in. She had Lance Armstrong on for two days. So it was a two-parter.
Really?
Yeah, so he basically had to confess his sins in front of her.
Ah.
Yeah.
And did she whip him, or was she just listening?
Oh, no. She asked him the tough questions. So, but that's, what's he going to do? He's in no position to
jump up on and down on the couch and leave.
To get uppity on Oprah. No, there's no
play it. I don't know.
Yeah. So you've gone through something. You've got So, what have you derived from the connection with the 8 degrees Mercury and all this stuff? Are you feeling like you're being delivered from your experience?
Well, it's like it's got to be a done deal one way or another. It's got to come to closure. And my advice from the people that have been through this is like, run away, leave, cut your losses and leave. So and it was that day. Might have been New Moon Day, the 10th. So I had a lot, because I've been fighting massive, just unbelievable, dumb corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And, so in 7 years, I relocated 1,000 miles away to Paradise with my husband and child.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fraudulent deal from the day we stepped foot in Idaho to right now. And what I have experienced with fraud and blatant lying and unprofessionalism to an unbelievable degree, it was a side of life I hadn't, ever dealt with before. And it's impossible to do business with, like psychopathic liars.
Mm-hmm.
But I did discover the dot that connected all these different entities and corporations who have all colluded and worked together to, suck me dry of every asset I have, including my health, every bit of stability, anything I could have. I did have a couple of rebounding moments. I did get regrounded. I did get re-strengthened. I have faith that I thought I had already, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I really have faith in it. So when the Pope declared himself, and I caught the 211, I didn't know about Chris Dorner being 611. It's like I know the cycle of this rabid dishonesty is over.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're noticing that all of this, in mass consciousness now, these plays. Chris Dorner, yes, we've never seen him. I don't know if he's even real, a real person.
Right.
The old pictures, all with Rambo, G.I. Joe type effects on the people.
Mm-hmm.
It was mainly, I think, a big message to people and people like me, because I have fought these people. I've said, no, you just don't get to lie and get away with it at my harm and your profit, no. And I want to know why. I want to know what's going on. It showed that, LAPD going out and shooting these people like this because they were driving a truck. They're shutting down the freeway down in San Diego with those concrete barriers that I always felt that's what they were for.
Yeah.
Doing warrantless searches on everybody, what they did down in Big Bear. It's to show if anyone thinks they're going to fight the man, how the man's going to fight back.
Right.
That, to me, was the biggest message with this. Full-bore, psychopathic, stupid force.
Well, I don't think, and I want to make sure that we stay, towards kind of the astrological tip, but I don't think that is a battle that quote unquote the common man can win. I just don't. And one of the things that was really clear early on when they talked about his manifesto is Christopher Dorner mentioned asymmetrical strategies or tactics. And if you know anything about asymmetrical strategy, what it means is you come in at things from angles. You are, so, and it's actually, it's a word that I have used before. So they're really, it's the parsing of the language is very interesting. And I think the only way that people will really be able to, quote unquote, have a fair shake in the world is, number one, they have to notice. Number two, they have to be aware. Number three, they have to keep their heart open. And number four, there has to be a very aligned response that is no. It is not a galvanized, build up your arms and build up your assets, throwdown. It's really just like a mindset. It's like a laser beam focused mindset that is simply an unequivocal no. And the first thing we're taught as children is the word no. Okay?
Right.
It is the first word we hear. Why? Because it's for our safety. And now it is the last word we use for our safety. And it's an interesting juxtaposition. So we need to be able to cultivate no, but cultivate no in a way that is not confrontational, that does not create this polarity. It is simply an outgrowth of our own expression for our own ability to discern and our own ability to choose. Because we do have choice, we do have free will until further notice. And the thing is, right, I was talking with a friend last night, the thing is that nothing gets done to us without consent.
Right.
And even the devil theoretically can't do anything unless you say yes, unless you put your name in blood and sign that thing, or you agree to whatever that thing is.
Right.
And if we say no, we say no in a respectful fashion. We say no that's aligned and congruent with who we are, and for the right reasons. And it's not a fuck you no. It's just no.
Right.
No, simple. And this is where I think we need to be able to get to this point where saying no is okay. Because if I say no, I'm an angry white man. If Chris Dorner,
I say no, I'm a nutty, crazy woman.
Right. Or if Chris Dorner says no, what is Chris Dorner? Then he's an angry black man. So anytime we get into saying no, we are typecast, and it brings out the worst or the most stereotypical versions of who we are. And I think that this is kind of like Jupiter and Gemini, bringing it back to astrology, is that we've got to bring these polarities together. So if we're saying no to something, we got to be saying yes to something else.
Well, see, then it gets into, I've been real fascinated with Jupiter and Gemini, and it finally went direct.
Yeah. And
I remember asking you on Facebook, with the new moon and the Chinese New Year also coinciding, there was something that came up, and I brought up the Venus and Gemini culting the sun last June.
Right.
Which to me really, really tied in a lot of cycles with me, and I really picked it up then that whole cycle of what slapped me in the face repeatedly for 7 years, where it came to the highest pitch of lying, doing whatever they want to do, and it's the mass people too. It's not just the authority people. It's been a liars free-for-all, a liars and thieves free-for-all. In the last 7-8 years has really been noticeable. And when that Venus did its cyclic thing on the sun in Gemini, I went, wow, this ties in with a lot of dates and data. I've been looking for what this cycle of this is all about, and I believe that cycle closed in June. Mm-hmm. And it takes a couple of big events to, make it people's the energy that people recognize that the cycle is over, or better yet, a new cycle has begun.
Well,
so
what's interesting is that Jupiter is I believe right now at the degree, I think Jupiter is at 8 degrees today. Just let me check really quickly here.
Oh, is it?
I think Jupiter is 8 degrees, and that was, I believe, the final degree of the Venus transit. I believe was 8 degrees. So let me
that's exactly squaring my sun. And so, yeah, this Jupiter in Gemini, for some reason, I don't remember Jupiter. I know it goes retrograde for like 6 months, but I've never had it be so impacting. It's in my 12th house.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this Gemini energy, my progressed Venus is at about 14 Jupiter now. I've really been conscious of the Gemini energies, and with the Pope doing what he's done, and it usually is money. You know, as much as we like to think, you know, anyone really cares about thousands and thousands, maybe millions of children being raped by the priest or anyone else, it's usually the money that does the big ones in. It would be the money.
Just to let you know, and everybody else listening, Venus ended its retrograde motion in Gemini with the Venus transit at 7 degrees. That's where it stopped. Okay, that's as far back as it went.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We are at 6 degrees now in terms of in Gemini. Okay.
Oh.
So we're 6 degrees now. So we go all the way back to, it goes direct at 7:29, and the exact 7:29 aspect would be. Let's see, on the 26th of February.
Wow.
26th of February.
Okay, now, when I first read about the Pope, I thought it said he would be stepping down on February 28th.
Is it February 28th?
I thought it was, yeah, because my birthday's the 27th.
And
I went, wow, he's not even going to go through Easter?
Well, if that's the case, then he's stepping down right at the Venus transit, where Jupiter goes direct.
Yeah, it's like he's not even going to go through Easter. That's kind of unusual.
Let's just see.
But yeah, I thought I saw it as 2/28.
Let's just make sure about that. If that's the case, then it changes things.
Right, and it does that Venus retrograde transit on the Sun really made a lot of things connected to me, and I've been looking for this for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the strange situation I've been in. Because, you know, it's just like everything I've successfully avoided all my successful life, I've been thrown into with courts and lawyers and, you know,
mm-hmm.
authority and trustees and all. You know, my husband was killed by the medical industry. They're no longer systems to me. They're all industries.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've learned very bluntly. One heinous action after another, and nobody doing anything but that's got the power to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the FBI tells you, no, we don't investigate, you know, 10 different felonies that we've told you were felonies and crimes, you know, unless you've lost $1 million in assets.
Mm-hmm.
Very unprofessionally, very bored. You know, it's just like, why?
Yeah.
You go after a crooked little bank teller who embezzles $30,000. No, we don't. I said, yes, you do. It's on your site.
So here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
The Pope, by the way, the last Pope to resign was in the 11th century. I think we are all at in some ways, a crossroads in consciousness.
Right.
Okay.
I agree.
So and not to diminish your struggle or to disparage that or make light of it or anything, because it's a very intense, very personal experience of yours. And I think that we're at a point in time where it's kind of like we abandon some of these New Age principles, you create your own reality, and in some ways we do. So I think we're at a point in time now, and maybe this is what Jupiter and Gemini, which is in its a fall. I think that what we can do with this Jupiter and Gemini piece is to bring together the ability to discern and the ability to see what's going on and to name names and to break things down. But then the other half of that equation is, okay, well, what do I do now?
Right.
So how do I change my thoughts? How do I change my vibration? How do I alter my frequency so that different characters start showing up in my life?
Right.
And that's, I think, where, maybe where you're at, maybe these realizations will trigger some of that for you, and all of a sudden they just evaporate and go away. And now you're living a very different kind of existence. And at that point, then what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life at that point?
I've investigated that too. It's like, am I using this trials and tribulations of the most, sickening levels to, what am I going to do when I no longer have them?
Right.
As my burden on my back.
Right.
And one day they will be gone one way or another. And then what? Am I using this? Because very unsatisfying. This position to be in. And, I've got half of my team saying you have to walk away with nothing and start over.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like every time I've gone that route, then I get another load dumped on me to bring me back into it. I've attempted that a few times. No, we're done. I'm just going to concentrate on my right now and, getting it together enough to get away from it even. But this Jupiter, now it sounds like you've got an ephemeris right there. Can you tell me when Jupiter is going to go into Cancer?
It's in June.
Because I've got 29 Gemini rising, and
June. So Jupiter goes into Cancer on the 27th. So if you've got 21 Gemini rising, then really what you need is just to have Jupiter cross over your ascendant.
Yes, that's been always noticeable because I've got a 40-degree 12th house.
Yeah.
So stuff is in there for quite a while.
Well,
when it crosses, I notice it.
What's happening is a lot of the planets are following in succession. So we're having in March we're going to have Venus, Mercury, Mars, all in Pisces. So they're all kind of bunched up. And just after Jupiter crosses your ascendant, Mars and Gemini will cross your ascendant as well. So
in Cancer?
No, in Gemini, because you have 21 degrees.
29.
You have 29 degrees Gemini?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is going to be in June. And then Mars hits 29 degrees in July. It's like a 1-2 punch there, right?
Uh-huh. So I've noticed Saturn and Scorpio it was 12 the last time I checked. Mm-hmm. The trine to my Sun has been wonderful. I was looking at your works on Aquarius, the first and second parts, and I know with myself, when Neptune was in Aquarius opposing the Pluto and Leo generations, that was I think the upheaval that was going on then really hasn't been, it might be settling down and getting dealt with, not even resolved yet, from that ferocious aspect that hit the entire Pluto and Leo generation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much that's coming out now. I feel very encouraged that cycle of just rabid lying, cheating, stealing, killing, that's over. And whatever that was about, it was about a lot of things, but that cycle is over. So could you do a little quickie on me and just see? I've got like a week to either fight this out one last round and save as much of my assets that I've got left, or a week walk away.
Wow, that's a lot. You know Mercury's going retrograde, right? You know that.
Yeah, when? What was the 14th or so?
So Mercury goes retrograde on the 23rd.
Oh, okay.
So you're in the shadow of Mercury retrograde right now.
Oh, okay.
Those
have actually been good times for me.
A week from now you've got a week, so it's the 20th. That puts Mercury right at 18 degrees. Puts the moon in Cancer, and if your first house is Cancer, you'll have Cancer. You'll have a moon Saturn. Saturn trining Cancer moon, and then Pisces Sun at that point in time. Early degree Pisces. So, all right, when is your birthday?
February 27th, 1956.
Okay. So anybody that's holding, we're gonna move on and do some other readings here. So just hold on for a couple more minutes. We're gonna finish up.
Sure.
Gardner.
Thank you, Robert.
So 1956, and the year, the day is, what is that again? February
27th.
February 27th. Okay. February 27th, 1956. Let's see. So
57.
I'm just going to do a solar chart here, not a natal. Okay, so February 27th, 1956. So you've got, let's see, you've got the moon opposite your sun. Let's see.
Okay, my moon is 0 Libra.
0 Libra. Okay, 0 Libra. And then you've got Mercury Aquarius 11, right?
12,
12, okay. And then Venus Aries.
19 Aries.
Mars Sag.
29 Sag.
And let's see, Jupiter Leo 26. Chiron Aquarius 8. You've got Pluto. Pluto's on your black moon Lilith right now, and Sag. You've got Sag, true node Sag. Let's see. I mean, I think that the big moment for you, in a lot of ways, is the square coming up with Uranus and Pluto, because at that point in time, Uranus is going to be at 11 degrees in Aries.
Okay, that's moving right into my 11th house.
So I would say one of the things that you would want to do during that time, well, first of all, because it's going to trine your true node in Sagittarius, I think you'll have, again, this is not a week from now, I'm sorry, I'm moving ahead, but you'll have, with Uranus trining your true node, more of a sense of purpose, and I feel that what you're trying to get at in this lifetime is a sense of vindication and getting to the truth, because you have a lot of Sagittarius going on in your chart, especially with that anaretic degree of Mars and Sagittarius.
Right.
You're trying, to me, this feels like what you're going through, a struggle that you've brought through a number of lifetimes. Like, this isn't the first time you've done this.
Right.
And whatever you've done before, you haven't finished it off. So in my estimation, you've got to finish this thing off. And finishing it off is going to be a really personal decision on your part.
Right.
And you've got to feel like that you have had some form of justice.
And that's what I haven't had. Mind-blowingly, none.
Well, I don't know if you're going to be able to get it in a week. Okay, I can't magically sit here and say a week from now somebody's going to knock.
Well, I've been I'm working on it.
And give you.
I'm still.
Knowledge. I can't say that. But what I will say is that by the time Uranus gets to exactly trining your true node, that will be the time that you will have the opportunity to feel as though your struggle on some level has been justified, okay? You'll get what you need by then. Before then, I cannot say. But by then, you will feel justified. And if Uranus is moving into your 11th house, then what you're going to need to do, in my estimation, is you're going to need to expand your circle of influence, your circle of awareness, and you're going to need to build community, because that's what the 11th house is. And if you can't do that where you are, then you need to go to a place where you can do that. Because
it's been up in my 10th for a long time.
One of the things that I feel you're dealing with is isolation.
Mm-hmm.
You're isolated in your struggle. You're isolated in people perhaps around you that can support you. And with Uranus moving into your 11th house, that is the end of isolation. That is a need for you to build community and to expand your circle of influence and awareness.
Oh, well, that would be good.
So if you can do that there, that's great. If you can't do that there, then you need to go somewhere where you can.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. It's like this is a huge pivot point, 7-year culmination.
So I think let me just leave you with this, because we need to move on, and I need to talk to some other people.
Right.
You need to figure out what you need in order to move on, and that could be money. It could be an apology. It could be something more internal. You need to figure out what that is.
Okay.
And then once you understand what exactly you need in order for this to cycle through you, then you just say, okay, God, I'm ready. I'm ready for closure. I'm ready to move on. I am tired of fighting. I have done everything that I can in order to bring this to the light of awareness of other people in my life. I'm ready to move on, have closure, experience this. You show me what I need in order to move on. This is what I think I need. You show me what I need. And
that's what I've been doing actually the last week or so. What do I need?
Yeah.
And what will I do?
Well, that I think is, you've entered into the realm of dialogue, inquiry, and programming the potential for manifesting resolution and awareness in your life. You're a Pisces. You can do this. You can make this happen.
I'm a Pisces monkey, too. I was just listening to your great radio show last week with Shelley. And, I'm a Pisces monkey, too.
So you can do this. You can move through this. You can bring what you need to you through that Piscean ability to imagine and, more importantly, reimagine the kind of life that you want to live.
Okay.
All right?
Well, thank you, Robert.
All right. You take care, Gardner. Thanks for calling in.
Okay.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That was the Gardner. Thank you for everybody who's been waiting in the queue and being patient. We have an hour left. I'm doing readings. So if you want to call in and get a reading, the number here is 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix, your host, and let's go to the next caller. Hello there.
Hey, hi, Robert. This is Sharon.
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Boy, that was pretty intense, that last lady there. She's moving through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, she's been going through this thing for a long time. Her husband died of cancer, and he was going through Kaiser. And it's a very long story. I don't really want to get into it, but I think she's ready to end a lot of that conflict and suffering in her life, because there's more to it than that, and I think she knows that. But what happens is we go through these periods and we get really tested, and we get screwed over, and we try to, in some ways, get to some form of resolution and feeling like our point of view or what we've experienced and suffered is justified on some level, or at least we can be justified for being aggravated and outraged by it. It's a very hard place to be. So my heart goes out to her. So what's going on with you?
Well, that's what I'm calling to find out from you. 32249. I think you might have it. I called in once before, but Toledo, Ohio.
Let's just see your 32249. I'm going to go to Well, we only have one other caller on the air. We're in the queue. That's a 310 number. Looks pretty familiar. Let's do a real chart for you then. I may not have you on the computer here because I go through so many charts. Don't take it personally. Let's see here. Hold on.
Sure.
Let's go to this one. No, I don't want to do that one. Go here. Yeah, let's do this one. Okay. And let's edit it. Okay, so 322.
49.
49.
Toledo, Ohio.
Let's go 3. There we go. 1949. And what time were you born?
10:30.
Is that in the morning?
PM.
PM. Okay. 10:30 in Toledo, Ohio. Let's go Toledo. All right. There's a lot of Toledos.
Really?
Yeah. There's
Toledo, Oregon, Toledo, Spain.
There's one in Oregon, Kansas.
Yeah.
All right. So, and we are off and running here. So there we go. 322, 1030, Toledo, Ohio. It's the Pentagon chart. Okay, so what do you want me to look at, or is there any specific thing that you are working with?
Yeah, well, I'm in a phase where I'm really working on developing my spirituality, and also, I'm ready for a partner. I haven't had one in forever. So kind of want to see how those things are all merging together.
Okay. Well, on the spiritual front, one of the interesting things going on for you is the transit of Saturn going through your 12th house. And this will dovetail somewhat with the partner piece, because a lot of times when Saturn transits the 12th house, it augurs a fairly intense and kind of solo journey into the inner realms of consciousness. And a lot of times when people have Saturn transiting the 12th house, they pull back from a lot of socializing. And there's a reason for that, because the Saturn 12th house transit is a time where we need to go within. And it's like we're doing a pilgrimage. It's like the pilgrimage of the soul. That's the Saturn 12th house transit. And because it's in Scorpio, it's actually a very, very deep and very powerful transit. So a lot of times when people have the Saturn transit in the 12th house, they will try to understand things like power. What is power? Where does power come from? Things like obsession, very scorpionic related topics, sexuality. Sexuality is a big, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but it is a prime mover when Saturn goes through the 12th house. And it's not necessarily about being overtly sexual. In fact, in some ways, it's the opposite. It's going deeper and understanding sort of the nuances and the power and the roots and the depth of what sexuality is and how it relates to our higher mind or our higher consciousness. We will sometimes have encounters with sexuality or obsession or even nightmare states with Saturn and Scorpio in the 12th house. And the reason why we do that is because in many ways it's also like a shamanic journey, and we get to face our fears around some of these unresolved areas in our lives. So if you're pretty resolved and pretty clear about that stuff, then you can go to deeper levels. There was a time when Saturn, the last time Saturn went through my 12th house was in my early 20s, and I had really outrageous out-of-body experiences, and I was like experiencing phantasms around my bed and stuff like that, lower fourth dimensional entities. So I'm not saying that will happen to you, but that can be part of the Saturn transit. But there's also a rebirth with the Saturn transit in Scorpio in the 12th house, because Scorpio is the phoenix. It's life and death and sex, rebirth and resurrection. And what happens is anytime you have a person goes through a Saturn transit in the 12th house, one of the most important aspects is the moment that it surfaces. It comes out of the 12th house and hits the ascendant or the first house, because that's like Saturn is breaking through water. It's breaking through it's like it's rising up from the surface in the depths of the ocean of consciousness, and then it breaks into the atmosphere in the light of day. Like, yes, I feel liberated. I feel much more open, and I feel like I've been through something. And now I can clearly see what I've been through, and I can use this. I can use this in my life. And now the focus is more on the self and what you can do as an individual at that point. And as Saturn this year, let me just go into the ephemeris again. Saturn this year will actually cross your ascendant, and it will cross your ascendant twice as it goes through the next phase of being in Scorpio, Saturn in Scorpio. So the first time it crosses your ascendant is later in the year. I think it's like September. Just let me get the date out here. So we go to, let's see, in October, it's in November. November, Saturn finally comes out of your 12th house, and it hits your ascendant on the 22nd of November, 11/22, very interesting day. And then really, on the 23rd, it is 0 degrees Sagittarius, and you have your Chiron at, 9 degrees Sagittarius, which is interesting. So the sun, within a week to 10 days, will be sitting on your natal Chiron in Sagittarius, which is actually, a really good transit for you. And Saturn will then be in your first house. A lot of times when Saturn transits the first house, people will dedicate themselves to some form of discipline. And that could be anything from dieting to exercise to meditation to yoga. There's something about Saturn when it transits the first house where people get very serious about how they appear to the world. So I would say to you, as it relates to this coming year and your spiritual life will be very in depth, because the 12th house is in some ways the most, every house in the chart is spiritual. If we look at the totality, it's like everything in life theoretically would be spiritual. Every house is spiritual, but there are some houses where it becomes much more pointed, and that really is more of the distillation and the focus. And that's the 12th. The 12th house is the house, because it's Pisces. It is where we really go back to God. If we come into the first, we leave through the 12th, and we go back to God, and we go back to the ocean of consciousness, the primordial soup from where we all came from and originate from, the realm of light. So with Saturn coming through that house, you will be and continue to experience the exploration of the depth of your spirituality. A lot of times when people have that 12th house Saturn experience, they'll get into things like shamanism or more indigenous forms of spirituality. What connects us, what takes us to the underworld. You would look into things like the mythology of like Orpheus going to the underworld. Any kind of underworld, labyrinthian, shamanic work that you can do during the Saturn and Scorpio 12th house transit will benefit you greatly. Because part of what the Saturn in the 12th house in Scorpio transit also gets us in touch with is our fear of death. So that's another aspect and component of this. So I believe that it's a very rich time and a very powerful time for you. It may not be the time that you would want to necessarily get involved in a relationship, because it's a very personal time. Now, when Saturn comes out of your 12th house and it's in your first house, now you're focusing on self. Now you're focusing on how you want to build yourself back up after you've gone through this journey. You've got Jupiter in your 7th house right now, so you will meet people. You will have stimulation in your life. I think really the time for you will be when Saturn moves into your first house, and we have Jupiter in Cancer. And Jupiter gets past Uranus, which is in Gemini in your chart. It moves into your 12th house a little bit deeper. And when Jupiter catches up with Saturn in the summertime, I think that could be a very interesting time for you in terms of connecting with somebody at a deep level. And when I say deep level, really being seen, being met, and so you can theoretically work on yourself, and you can have a desire to bring discipline and more of a sense of focus to your identity and who you are. And you don't necessarily have to do that in a way where it could be exclusionary. So, but I would wait. I would wait until Saturn moves out of my 12th house, and that really would be November for you. Now transiting, so you will have this opportunity though, sometime in July, August, to have a meaningful connection. That meaningful connection, you could nurture that and hold on to that and kind of build that so that maybe later in the year, come October, November, literally when Saturn breaks water, you'll be more available, more present for that. So that's kind of what I'm seeing.
That's very interesting. I feel kind of like I've been on this journey into spirituality for some time. So yeah, I'll take your advice as far as a partner. I mean, because it's been this long. What's another year? Really.
Well, it wouldn't be necessarily a year, but it's November, so we're really talking 9 months. But with Saturn in your first, Saturn has been in your 12th house since it's been in Libra, since it's been at 20 degrees Libra, which would have put it back to 2011. So it's been in your 12th house for a while. So you're getting ready to graduate, though. And when Saturn moves out of your 12th house and into your first house, you're going to feel quite different. And you're going to feel like you've got a handle on who you are, your personal power, and some of the things that are really vitally important to you. And at that point, attracting somebody, because Scorpio is one of the best signs in terms of manifestation. So when you're intact and you've extracted all the meaning from the Saturn transit of your 12th house, attracting somebody will not be hard for you at all, because they'll show up, and they'll show up with whoever you are and whatever you've collected as a result of the Saturn transit in your 12th house. And the gift comes from Jupiter is the gift, and the gift comes from the 8th house. So again, it's emerging out of a water house, a house of mystery, and it's in Cancer, so it's nurturing, it's being met. I think it's great.
No, it sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Robert.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. You take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the 310. Hello there.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, my name is Cynthia. I'm a first-time caller.
Oh, hi, Cynthia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
How did you find us?
I just stumbled onto you
Yeah.
when I was looking, and I have studied astrology myself for a lot of years, but not professionally, and so it's always good to get another perspective. It's hard to have perspective with yourself.
It is.
For me.
Even me, it's like, I think I know my chart inside out, and just 2 days ago I was looking at Chiron in my chart, and I realized that Chiron is retrograde in my chart. Like when I was born, Chiron is at 28 degrees Aquarius and is retrograde, and I really never paid that much attention to it. And then I looked back. It's like, well, if it was retrograde, where was it before? And my birth year is 1960, so I realized that Chiron was actually in Pisces in my birth year, but then it went backwards. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I decided to jump into a body when Chiron was in Aquarius retrograde. I wonder what that means. And then I looked at my last 3 posts on my website, and I'm looking back at certain cycles of Aquarius, the Russian Revolution, the 60s, the Great Society, is all being iterations of what I would call the shadow of the age of Aquarius. It's like, hey, well, that makes sense now. So even if we, spend a lot of time studying and researching, there's always something new that's going to pop, and sometimes we figure it out, or sometimes somebody else says, hey, have you noticed this? So glad you called in. When is your birthday?
10/2/52 at 10:08 p.m.
Okay, so
in Los Angeles.
All right, so let's go 10/2/52. So we got the 2 there, we got the 10 there, and 1952, and LA, what time?
10:08 p.m.
10:08 p.m., okay. 10:08 p.m. There we go. And Los Angeles, California. The former home of Christopher Dorner. Let's see.
Pardon?
So the former home of Christopher Dorner.
Oh.
Okay. You know who Chris Dorner is, right?
No, I don't.
Okay. He was the guy that half of the LAPD has been searching for the last week.
Oh, him. Oh, that. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
right.
Looking at your chart here, and since you know a little bit about your chart, let me verify. I've got you at 2 degrees Cancer ascendant. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then Sun in Libra, 9 degrees, and Moon in Aries. So you've got an interesting T-square jumping out right there with your ascendant, and your Moon, and your Sun.
Right.
Yeah. How's that been for you?
Challenging. And it's really activated right now with all the cardinal stuff going on.
Yeah.
So, but I've been lucky in that I've been on a spiritual journey since I was 21, and astrology was the beginning of it. So I think it really helps to know astrology because it gives you perspective and what you're here to learn. And I just kind of take it one step at a time. I'm a psychotherapist. I have Chiron in the 7th, close to my ascendant, and I've been a psychotherapist for over 23 years, and just been I've been a meditator.
Right.
So I think I just had what you had said earlier about really this is a shift and a transition of people just really stepping up. I've been a bit complacent in my work, but always wanting to kind of step it up. And I really feel an urgency now to do that. And I'm working harder at it. I think I took the traditional psychotherapy role as just a foundation, but it's also stopped me from being a little more esoteric. I think my real spirit is more esoteric.
Yeah.
And but I'm ready to kind of come out, so to speak. If I'm at the age too where it doesn't matter as much what people think.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about your chart?
Sure.
Now you were born in 1952, and generally speaking, families did not divorce right around the time you were growing up. Maybe even a little older, but I see this Sun-Moon opposition. Did your parents get divorced, or were they in the same house and not very connected in terms of their own emotionality?
They divorced when I was 7.
Okay, so there we go. You were divorced. It was divorced. See, the reason I ask that is because that's not necessarily a time in our history where people really got divorced, but I can see the Sun-Moon opposition, which is a classic kind of divorce angle in a chart. And so when for you in your chart, the challenge here is the T-square gets played out with the Moon, Mother, Sun, Father, and then the angle of the ascendant. I would guess that that's you, and trying to mediate and being this Cancerian sort of nurturer, trying to make things okay, difference maker in the midpoint between the Sun and the Moon. And what's interesting about this is that as a result of the splitting of the atom, or the splitting of the nucleus of the nuclear family, for you, your challenge and struggle in your life has been about bringing the masculine and the feminine together in your own life. and as it relates to the split between your mother and the father. So what's interesting now is Uranus is a major player in your chart. It's just crossed over your moon, and as Uranus crosses over your moon or your feminine aspect, one of the things I just heard you say is, "Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to let it all hang out. I'm ready to come out, whatever that means for you, on the esoteric tip or the occult tip, or that's Uranus just crossing over your moon, your feminine aspect, saying, "Hey, I'm ready to take a risk. I'm ready to do something that is, outside the box." And you're kind of a risk taker anyway with Uranus in your first house, but because it's in Cancer, it's a little more conservative. Cancer moves sideways and moves backwards, so it's a tricky kind of position for Uranus in your chart. But you are very forward thinking, and you have the ability to innovate with the Uranus Jupiter sextile. That's a very interesting sextile, and your Jupiter is in Taurus, so it's innovation with form, so it's creating new form. Now, what's happening with Uranus transiting right now is it's getting ready to oppose your Sun in Libra. I think for me that's exciting because the Libra Sun, you've got Sun in Libra, and you've got Mercury in Libra, and you've got Saturn in Libra as well, and along with Neptune. Libra is there are two signs I think that are really tremendous psychotherapists, and it's Libra, Scorpio. And a lot of times you'll find crossover, like people will have a Libra Sun and maybe Venus and Scorpio like you do, so they can get in depth with clients, or maybe it'll be a Scorpio sign, they'll have some flavor of Libra. But that angle of the chart actually makes the best psychotherapist. So you've got this psychotherapeutic sort of aspect already built into who you are. Do you see your clients in a home office by any chance?
No.
Okay.
But I'm thinking of doing more phone sessions, which would be from my home.
Okay. That would actually be a good thing because you've got all that Libra lined up in the fourth house, right? So you can either build an office or do more phone sessions in the home, which is kind of interesting because then you've got Uranus now transiting your 10th house, which is more outside the box. It's more, what you want to do now is you want to be able to bring that Libran energy, and Uranus is pulling on your Sun. It's like, hey, bring it up here, bring it into the 10th house, blaze some trails, take some risks. That's Uranus in the 10th house. It's pulling that intensity with the opposition on your Sun. That's what you're feeling. You're saying, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to bust out. I got to do something. One of the things that I try to work with in terms of oppositions is taking the opposition out of two-dimensional space and time and actually making it a third-dimensional, three-dimensional sort of experience and turning it into a loop, right? So now the opposition isn't just like this polarized experience. If you can bring it out and turn it into a loop, now you've got a cycle. Now you can really say, okay, we're working with some momentum. We're not frozen. We're not stuck. We're not polarized. Yeah, I bring my insight. I have my insights at home. I do my best meditation at home. I do all these things at home that feed my Libran ability to bring balance into other people's lives. Now, how do I launch that into the 12th, into the 10th house? How do I get out there and become more visible, more known? Because that's kind of what you have to do too. Now, doing phone stuff, that can be a very interesting kind of Uranian, Aries kind of thing. But why stop at phone stuff? Why not do teleseminars? Why not do your own radio show? Why not put yourself out there in ways that are unconventional for you? Maybe not unconventional for other people, but unconventional for you. Maybe you could go to a Living Expo fair somewhere in Los Angeles and, get a small booth or something along those lines. It's about putting yourself out there more. That's what Uranus in the 10th house is. So if you can complete the cycle, if you can generate the ideas, generate the program, generate the marketing, generate all the things that you need, materials, books, booklets, ebooks, whatever those are, and then boom, Uranus and Aries said, innovate, 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 connect, 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 connect. I think that's what you need. You need to put yourself out there more in very unconventional or ways for you that would be unconventional, because that would also be interesting for your Uranus and Cancer, in the first house, because you are somebody that wants to innovate. That's very much, I can see that in your chart. The other thing for you is the Pluto transit in your seventh house is interesting. So you're going to be dealing with Pluto for a while in that house. So it's about relationship and using Pluto as an ally. So I would say, because you've got this Sun-Moon opposition in your chart, that part of the things that you would do with your psychotherapeutic work would be work with couples who are on the verge of divorce or have separated. And the Pluto in the seventh house would give you the intensity to deal with couples work in a pretty powerful way, because Capricorn is very authoritarian. It's a sign that evokes authority. So being an authority on something like this is also something you need to think about. Could you write a book about it? Could you write a book about your own experience? Could you write a book where case studies that you've dealt with people who have had and gone through separation and used therapy to heal themselves on the back end of their separation, or case examples of where therapy actually worked and brought people back together and resolved their differences? That's Pluto in the seventh house, and trying to understand this whole notion of relationship, especially beginnings and endings in relationship, which would be Pluto, and using them to your advantage. So these are some aspects that I think could be very advantageous for you. And then you've got Aquarius. Let's see, what is it? It's what is the true node in Aquarius up in the ninth house. So part of what you need to do is you need to figure out the publishing game. You've got to publish something, because true node in the ninth house is about getting the message out there. A lot of people say, well, why is Sagittarius connected with publishing? Well, Sagittarius is connected with Orthodox religion. The first book ever printed was the Gutenberg Bible. So now we have publishing coming together with religion. So you've got to somehow figure out the publishing piece for yourself. And maybe a good time for you to do that would be sort of the latter degrees of Gemini. You've got Gemini going through your 12th house right now. And when Gemini hits 17, 18, 19, 20 degrees, look for inspiration, because it's going through the house of spirit, the 12th house. So it will line up with your true node in the ninth house. That's a way, by the way, for you to evoke the energy from the 12th house to get it up into the ninth house. So look for that period of time, which this year, since I have the ephemeris open, we may as well look at it. Hold on a second. Let's go there again. 2013, we'll just pop. There it is. So this year, 20 degrees Gemini is going to be in May, which is a good time for you, because at that time you've got your Jupiter's in Taurus, right? So yeah. So you're going to have a Sun transit on your Jupiter. Jupiter is at 20 degrees Taurus.
Yes.
Yeah. So 20 degrees Taurus. Let's see. That's going to be on the 11th. That's May 11th. That's great, right? So, and then you're going to have Jupiter in Gemini at 19 degrees trining your true node in Aquarius. That's a spectacular time for inspiration and figuring out how, if you have an idea for a book, if it's a latent idea for a book, that's a great time for it to rise to the surface. It's also a good time to network. Ask your friends who if they know any publishers, or if they know any e-publishers, or maybe even look into e-publishing yourself. So mark that time off. The moon is in Gemini that day too. So the 11th of May, I think is a time for you where you can have some real insight, real breakthrough, and real revelation as it relates to your true node up in the ninth house.
Nice, yeah. I know that my progressed moon is in Gemini as well, and in the 12th, which is kind of a reclusive.
It is reclusive, yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I know that, but it's training a lot, so it's a real comforting reclusive for me right now. But I could feel that tug of just not wanting to. It's an interesting pull, but I think it seems like when it hits the Gemini hits Cancer, then I'll have a shift.
You will.
I feel like I'm kind of incubating right now in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like the last call where I was talking about Saturn moving through the 12th house. Your Jupiter is moving through the 12th house. And the Jupiter, while Saturn is kind of a journey through the labyrinth in the 12th house, Jupiter in the 12th house isn't really like that at all. It's like diving for pearls. That's what Jupiter is in the 12th house. It's like diving for pearls. And so if you dive for pearls, you'll find them. And then you will bring them up to the surface as Jupiter moves into your first house in Cancer. So that'll be a good time for you.
When I was talking about my progress moon is in the 12th as well.
Right.
And that's a big trigger. So that would also support that when it goes into Cancer, right?
Yeah. Yes, it would. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think this summer could be very interesting for you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of, I'm just trying to feel that I'm doing things, and actually why I found your show is because I am seriously, and I'm thinking of an internet radio show. So that's, and I've been working on that, and I know it's going to take a little bit of time, and summer is kind of good timing for that. So. Yeah,
I think so. If you can build a bridge between astrology and psychology, I think there's a real niche. And so, and I know that maybe psychological boards or whatever may frown on that, but if you can do it in a way that is, copacetic and keeps you in good standing, I think you could really create something really interesting for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much. I always say my first love is astrology, and I love hearing about it. It elevates me for sure.
All right. Well, listen. You go out there and have fun with that Uranus opposition. Call back sometime when you feel like you've had some breakthroughs and share them with us. Okay.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Let's go back to my old neck of the woods here and take a call from the 415. Hello.
Hey, Dangerous.
Oh, hey. It's my old friend, my good friend, whose birthday is tomorrow.
That's why I called.
How are you?
I'm good.
So this is my friend Lee, everybody. Say hi to Lee. I've known Lee since it was 1994, right, Lee, when we first met?
I bet it was, yep. Ooh, wow, goes back that far.
So I'll give people just the rundown on our personal history without getting too messy, Lee. I met Lee at a psychic fair in 1994, and at that point in time, I was actually selling music. I had my own distribution company, and I was doing mail order and selling to some select mom and pops. And like the rest of my life, I was selling esoteric music that was about 10 years ahead of its time, and trying to make a living out of it. And you were walking around the floor looking for people to you were working for the Whole Life Expo then, and you were looking for people to exhibit at the Whole Life Expo. And
right.
at that time I had one video I was selling, and it was Alien Dreamtime with Terrence McKenna, Stephen Kent, and Ken Adams, who's been on this show, actually did the video. And I remember looking at that video, and there's like some really suggestive kind of like erotic stuff going on in that video. And so here I am, like with this Terrence McKenna techno sort of soft porn thing going on, and trying to sell music, and then you show up, and then you thought it was mildly interesting, and we became friends.
Yeah, well, remember the name of your company was Dangerous Dharma. That's how you got your name.
Dangerous Dharma, and you blessed me with the nickname Dangerous, which I've not been able to shake ever since in certain parts of. And unfortunately, I feel like once you named me that, I had to live up to that, Lee.
Oh, is that your excuse?
That's right. I got into all this trouble because you gave me that nickname.
Oh, well.
It's all your
well, you're
fault.
A dangerous man.
Only in the best possible way.
Only in the best possible way. It's true. Yeah. I've always appreciated you.
So
and your wisdom, because what grew out of that, in fact, that's when you started doing the expos, is when you started doing readings.
That's right. And you played such. I look back on my relationship with you now, and you played such an integral part of my life in some ways, because I was actually traveling around the country reading tarot cards, and it was in 1996. And I don't know how we connected, because I was on the road, and you told me to meet you in Austin to do the Whole Life Expo in Austin. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was
yeah.
that was the first time that I did my tarot reading in like a public space. It was at the convention center here in Austin. And then part of the application process was I had to come up with a name for my business. And I said, well, I'm a Scorpio rising, so I may as well be Phoenix rising. Why not? Right? So that's what I put down. So then check this out. So then I'm doing the cards, and this guy sits down, and he says, so is Phoenix your last name? And I said, well,
why not?
Well, no. He said, well, the reason I asked is I knew a guy named Bob Phoenix who lived in Phoenix. I said, well, hey, maybe I'll be Robert Phoenix. I'll just take. So it was from that moment on that's when I took that name. It was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really a very So what great importance will you have brought to my life today, Lee?
What great importance?
Yes.
Well, I've been reading all about this guy Dorner. You know how what a coincidence that his wallet was found next to his body, huh? That seems to always happen.
Oh yeah, the wallet is next to the body, like the passport is next to the charred remains.
Exactly.
And the Quran is found in the car.
Oh, really? I didn't
remember the abandoned car at Logan Airport in Boston?
Yeah.
Oh, they just happened to have the Quran in the car with passages in the Quran underlined that underscored what they were. It's stagecraft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but it's typical.
It's getting all too typical in some ways.
Yeah.
So what do you like? Everything burned but his wallet?
Apparently, I didn't get into it too much, but that just really stood out, and I went, oh, here we go again.
So Chris Warner had one of these really sophisticated 2-inch thick asbestos wallets.
Yeah.
With aluminum wrapped around the outside. I've seen those wallets on eBay before. I've always wanted one.
The other thing I'm curious about is this guy, Chris Kyle.
I talked about Chris Kyle. Did you hear it at the beginning of the show?
No, I didn't hear it, no.
I talked about Chris Kyle, Warner, and Chris Culliver, 3 Chris's.
Oh, that was your reference to the Christophers. I see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I came in a little late, so I saw that on your Facebook.
Christopher is Christ over, right?
And then the Pope and all his. It's
we're basically now
too wild. It just doesn't stop.
We're retracing the beginning. So the first 50 minutes was me talking about all this stuff.
Okay, well I'll have to go back and listen because I just.
But you're on the right track here. You're on the right track.
Yep. Well, and tomorrow I'm turning 66, and I'm admitting to it because why not?
All right, so I'm just going to put this out.
Everyone will be lucky if they reach 66.
I'm going to put this out there to people in Radio Land.
Okay.
This is one hot woman, okay? 66 years old. She's one hot woman. And by the way, she's single. So
I'm eternally single, I think.
Well, you have Venus in Capricorn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, just late in life. It's just going to happen late in life.
And it's getting run over by Pluto here.
So it's going to transform. Pluto's going to transform your Venus. Maybe today will be the day. Maybe there is somebody out there in Radio Land that says, hey, Robert, she sounds really interesting.
Hey.
I'd like to meet her.
I caught the vibe.
Hey, by the way, I am kind of an astrological internet matchmaker.
Oh, you are? Well.
Kind of, inadvertently, apparently.
It just happens, huh?
It's all the love. I just can't help it.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do for your birthday?
Well, I celebrate the entire week. In fact, I like to celebrate the entire month of February. I think
why not?
Appropriate. Why not?
Yeah.
But this whole week, I'm just treating myself to different things. Somebody's taking me out for lunch today, and going to some party tomorrow evening, and and getting my hair done on Friday, and that kind of thing, just taking it easy. It's a beautiful week. The sun is really out here in Marin, and just
I can
enjoying.
hear the birds, by the way. I can hear the birds in the background.
Yeah, I'm sitting out on my deck.
And you have like you can see Mount Tam from where you are. Is that right?
I sure can.
Yeah, I love your place. So you're going to go out with your friends. You're going to hang out with your goddesses. Is that what's going on?
Well, actually, Dennis. You remember Dennis, don't you?
Yes.
So he's taking me out. He's my Valentine this year. Remember, you were my Valentine back when I first met you.
I was your Valentine in 1994, I believe.
Because and it was right before. It was right around my birthday.
Yes.
Oh, was it 1994? Yeah, maybe so. I was thinking 93, but it must have been late 93 when we met.
We actually met, I think, in January of 93. 94.
It had to be 94. You're right. Had to be 94.
January 94. So,
yeah.
Lee, we're going on 20 years.
20 years.
Is that freaky
19
or
years.
what? Well, 20 next year. I mean, is that freaky?
Isn't that what do they call that astrologically? What happens every 19 years?
That's what the Pluto shift. Well, Pluto
it's the
shift.
nodes.
Nodes.
Yeah, the north and south nodes, which
are
in Scorpio and Taurus right now.
So it would be the nodal return. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a nodal return, exactly.
Interesting. When I met you, your son was just a bit younger than my son. I think Shaw was 6 when I met him.
Yep.
And now how old is he now?
He's born in 87. He's 25.
To me,
he'll be 26 in April.
That's a freak show. I look at him now, I'm like, I feel like I time traveled. It's like, what the hell happened?
I know. Can you believe it?
It's crazy.
Yep. And we're the same people. We haven't changed a bit.
He's changed a lot.
Oh, yeah?
Well, in some ways, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
Of course.
Well, Lee, it's great to hear from you.
He's going to be in Austin here soon for the South by Southwest.
Well, I'll have to meet up with him. It'd be good to see him.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He and his band are going to be playing in it.
Oh, okay. Well,
Starlight Girls.
I'll have to get on the list or something.
Yeah, I have to do a shout out for the Starlight Girls.
Okay, so your son is he turned into an amazing musician producer, did you ever think he would do that?
No, I didn't. But I did realize or start to recognize his musical talent fairly early on. It was pointed out to me by a friend of mine when he started playing the piano and picking out tunes, and he hadn't been trained, and so we got him some piano lessons, and then we got him a guitar. When he dyed his hair blue is when we got him a blue guitar, and that was about 14. I think he was 14.
Okay.
So. But yeah, no, he's a really together kid. I'm impressed with him as an artist. I mean, he's not doing the traditional job, but he's as an artist and as a human being, he's a very grounded, good guy.
And the Starlight Girls are actually a respected young indie rock band.
Right.
I mean, it's not like they're a couple of kids strumming away. I mean, this is a band that plays in New York and, is part of a, really thriving underground music scene.
Yeah, it's a great scene. This is what we were doing back when we were that age in New York and in San Francisco. The whole scene in New York has moved to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole music scene is right now, and artists. Rather than being in Greenwich Village, they're now in Brooklyn, and it's great. It's really, I love it. I love that he gets to do this.
Well, if you enjoy indie rock, check out the Starlight Girls.
Yeah, just Google them, and their best song I think is Gossip Girls.
Gossip Girls.
Yeah.
Okay, Gossip Girls, Starlight Girls, and they'll be playing here in Austin at South by Southwest. I will be sure to check them out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I tell you what, maybe one of these days I'll get Shaw on the show. We can talk about his music.
Great.
That'd be fun.
It'll be fun and play his
some
music.
tunes. Yeah, play some tunes. Maybe we'll do that while he's in. Maybe we'll do that while he's here. I'll do an interview with him or something.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. All right, Lee. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you go, and if you want to you want a little astrological tune-up, we'll do it offline. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for calling in. It's good to hear from you. All right?
Yeah. It's always good to talk to you, Dangerous. Love you.
Okay. Love you back. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The amazing Lee Walters. Oh, I shouldn't have said her name. She doesn't mind. Her son is Shaw Walters, by the way. Starlight Girls. And with that, we have reached the end of the road here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know about you, but I liked today's show. I thought it was a good show. We had the gardener at the beginning and my friend Lee at the end. Lee's an Aquarius, obviously, Valentine's Day. And some really interesting calls in between. Friday, I am going to have Alfred Labramont Weber on the show. And we're going to go into the realm of exopolitics and explore the nether regions of very strange attraction and even stranger connections. Looking forward to that. A lot of people are. Alfred Labramont Weber on Friday. And beyond Friday, who knows? But I will be back on Monday with the Monday Mashup, which, by the way, has been having more guests because I'm having more people wanting to be on the show. So instead of me ranting, it's me ranting with other people on Mondays. Okay, so you know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. Enjoy the rays of Aquarius shining down upon your head, because soon it will shift into Pisces. And Pisces will most certainly rain upon you as well, but a different kind of rain. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. My website is robertphoenix.com, and you can find me on Facebook, where there's always a good conversation happening. I'll see you on Friday with Alfred Labramont Weber. Adios.
In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved Archangel, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of Karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I demand the action of the sacred fire in this hour. Descend on mighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God slain. I demand the full power of beloved mighty to be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send to me, Lord mighty, Gautama and Sanat Kumara. Come forth now in the victory of the God slain. Send the light of 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Presence of the around this fortune now. I call upon the great symbols and magnets. I call upon